Hello, the video you're about to watch is of a real pro bono advisory and mentorship session that I did with a founder. The conditions of getting a pro bono session as an entrepreneur or founder is simply that I can record it and share it with the world like this so others can learn from it. So please enjoy this session. I hope you take away something from it. And if you're a founder and entrepreneur and want to apply to be featured on an episode and get a free advisory session, then please email the email in the description or at the end of the video.
Thank you. Yeah, so we're Garmst. We are a menswear clothing rental subscription platform. We started out about a year and a half ago. I started the business with my sister, and we started by she was renting some clothes, and I asked her how the hell she was wearing such nice clothes on such a low London salary. Right. She told me about clothing rental, at which point, a year and a half ago, so I'd never heard the fact that you could, that you could apply a kind of access over ownership model to clothes. I was very interested from, I like my style. I was very interested and thought, cool, I want to rent some clothes myself. We looked out what was out there on the market, and for men, and specifically for what I wanted, there was absolutely nothing. And so went away, sort of thought about, there's a gap in the market here, kind of joked about starting something up. And a month or two later, we came back together at a family event, back with the parents. And I said to her, there's definitely a gap in the market here. I've spoken to a few friends that hadn't heard of rental, but would be very interested just in terms of the cost perspective, the variety, there's so many benefits to it. So we decided to sort of start to trial and get an understanding about how men might want to rent clothing differently. So right now, the clothing rental market looks a lot like everything's kind of focused towards event rental, a lot of occasion wear. So you have a wedding, and you might not want to wear the same thing twice to two weddings, or you have a party and you might want to wear something which is a bit out of your price range that you probably, in terms of cost per wear, won't get real kind of value out of. That's how the market kind of looks at the moment. We took a step back and said, right, how would men want to utilize the kind of rental vehicle to be able to achieve what they want from clothes? And we took a step back and thought, men, or most generalizing kind of statement, but men aspire to dress really well, but in terms of having the time, money, and the confidence to actually engage in the process of how the kind of sale process looks at the moment, there is actually a real barrier there. So I'll take an example. A lot of men might walk past a shop which they've never been into before, a brand which they've never been into before, and the bar to kind of entry of feeling confident enough and the self-assurance to go in there and actually buy something and spend a lot of money on a high quality item is actually really, really high. So what we took a step back and said is there an easy way that we can make men feel comfortable to try brands, to try things that are more expensive, more durable, more high quality, in a kind of easy, approachable way. So that was our brief, and that was we really identified a kind of a big problem in terms of this is out there. Brands are struggling to acquire new customers because actually it's very difficult to attract our customers to our durable, high quality brand. Sure. So what we decided was actually looking at some kind of personal styling recommendation type model within rental was a solution to that. So we started to take, just friends initially. We sent out a few kind of Google forms and was like, right, fill in the sort of stuff you like, and then we'll start to think about, introducing you to some new stuff without the commitment of needing to buy it. So we sent out a load of clothes to our mates, and they were like, yeah, this is cool. And the fact that I only need to wear them, the fact that I don't have to commit to buying them is also very cool. I get to send it back. I get to tell you what I thought. And then over time, the service that you're providing me is improving. That's
right. So it kind of, you curate it based on what they're saying they liked and didn't like, kind of a
exactly right.
Exactly experience. Okay,
exactly right. So initially they tell us what they like. That gets fed into our recommender algorithm. from our brands and stock pool that we work with, we then send them a shared wardrobe for like minimum a month. At the moment, we like to think that actually making it super easy, not having a lot of pressure to wear it for a weekend and then having to send it back is actually, quite most men find that quite uncomfortable in that pressure of having to send it back at a certain time. So actually having a sort of more shared wardrobe that you can kind of develop and choose when to send back and change is a better solution to kind of menswear. And then after they're kind of ready to send it back, they tell us what they thought of it. So sometimes it might be after a month they say really liked it, but actually that aspect of what you sent me was a bit too jazzy, or a little bit too big. Can you adjust my sizing, or can you adjust this, or I really like that brand, but I really actually hated that brand. So that all of that gets then fed back into our recommender. So it all gets sent back, all gets washed.
So is this all done online?
Yeah, all done online.
Through a platform that you've built.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
So when did you guys build this first version of the platform? When was this?
So we, as I said, like six months in, I suppose, we were kind of getting to the point when we got really, really good feedback from friends and friends of friends and stuff like that. And everything was very manual. So sending Google Forms, feedback was all Google Forms. That was all getting kind of
the way to do it. It's the way to do it. That's the MVP.
Into some like really kind of scrappy databases, all linked together. Everything going wrong with not everything going wrong, but everything always screwing up when different people kind of change, different software companies change different formats, or the APIs changed or whatever. And so we took a step back and sort of started to build something. One of my good mates helped us build it on Webflow. Has a nice members area, has a nice clean kind of interface in terms of where people put in what they like. That all gets fed through directly into our algorithm, and it all works nicely and automatically. And customers have their member zone, which they can go in, feedback. They can also there's the additional option to like request stuff as well. So I said it's all about like monthly everyday wear, but like let's say you are going to a wedding, or you have got a big date coming up, or
you can make requests.
You can make specific requests, and that kind of overrides the algorithm. So you then obviously make sure that you're kind of getting
one-off stuff. Yeah, I get that. Yeah. Okay, cool. So then, so what's the situation right now? This was going back. Sorry, when did you say again this all started?
Yeah, so we're about a year and a half old now.
About a year and a half in. So where are things at the moment, user-wise, etc.?
So we have been building we bootstrapped the whole thing. We've been growing pretty organically, about 10% month on month. To be honest, not plugged a huge amount of money into marketing. It was mainly just building, just iterating a product to see what works, what doesn't work. Working with a few brands to pilot kind of what introducing their brands into the circulation kind of looks like. So we're getting sort of towards 100 users, which in a kind of B2C space with minimal marketing is nice. It's nice to see. We've got a good retention.
That's a high number. That's a high number. Yeah, that's nothing to be sniffed at for a year and a half, going from concept to from nothing to something. So that's great. And what's that looking like from a retention perspective?
Yeah, so exactly that's what I was just about to say. So in terms of our month-on-month retention, we're about 75% at the moment, which we're really, really proud of. To be perfectly honest, like one of the things that we are looking to develop over the kind of next 12 months is how we improve that retention from our month one customers. Because for us, like as I know, like you've got some experience in model building, like AI kind of model building. It's all about like data and inputs. So for example, when in month one we know 6 data points on a customer, so we send them out a wardrobe based on kind of 6 data points basically. So the likelihood of getting that right is obviously much lower than in 3 months time where we've got kind of continual feedback from them. So what we're currently kind of working on and developing is understanding how we can really make that kind of month one experience for our customers really, really accurate and really, really good. Exactly.
Makes sense. Yeah. I think it's really important to consider that initial user experience and customer journey for that reason. Okay, cool. So I understand the product. I understand where you're at. How does it make money?
How does it make money? So currently at the moment we work, so I said we are very B2C. We have our customers that we have acquired and that we have retained. We work with brands to rent their clothes through our wardrobes to our customers at the moment, and that works on a revenue share model. And we also work with vintage sources, so big vintage sources that we have. So we have an allocation algorithm which recommends our customers wardrobes. We have a allocation algorithm forecasted 3 months in advance, which identifies the clothes that we will need in 3 months' time based on various parameters. So we have basically a shopping list that we put out to all of our brands and sources to say, right, this is what we will be renting out in 3 months' time. Yeah. Source it for us basically. And so
So the short answer is the users pay a subscription fee, I assume.
Exactly.
Yeah. Are there different tiers of subscription to allow?
Right now we're keeping it simple. We've got one product.
Okay. And how much is that?
£45 a month, 4 shirts. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. And then the revenue share with partners.
Exactly. Okay.
Fair enough. So what is that? Are you willing to reveal what that revenue share split is?
Yeah, currently we just on a 50-50 basis. To be honest, keep it simple at the moment. One of the things that we've been trying to explore for number one in terms of the proposition to vintage and secondhand sellers and brands is very, very different. So in terms of the secondhand sellers, actually what they want to do is just drive revenue from their stock basically before they sell it. It's already used, so actually renting it for 3 to 6 months makes a lot of sense. They can make a bit of money from it, then they can sell it for the same price. From a brand's perspective, actually it's really interesting from their side because you have the kind of introduction to new customers. We have all the information about our customers, so we know their age, we know location, we know what kind of brands they like, so we can actually work with our brands to say, right, what sort of customers are you kind of aiming at marketing to, I suppose. We work with them kind of more closely, and right now the brands that we're kind of piloting with is right, let's figure this out. Does it work for you? What our goal in the next year is actually to say we have kind of proved on a kind of small scale that this model works and men feel comfortable consuming clothes in this way and actually having the kind of styling aspect. So for the next step is actually, can we work with our brands more on a B2B perspective to provide this model for their customers? So for example, you go on to, Tommy Hilfiger's website and you go, I want an intro box from Tommy Hilfiger. These are my details, and then so it's suddenly that lowers the bar to the kind of the intro bar that I was saying initially. Like one might not go onto their website and want to buy £150 shirt, but actually if you could rent that for a month, try it out, see what your friends say about it, and at the end of the month, if the price of the product is good enough based on the fact that the brand has already made revenue from that garment on the rental, it starts to get quite interesting, I think. And in terms of
it's a marketing opportunity for them essentially. Yeah. I get it.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Okay, cool. So I think I understand the basics and the fundamentals of the business. So then I guess it's over to you to kind of what you wanted to have this session. So what are the burning questions? What are the things you wanted to maybe pick my brains on? And look, bear in mind that as you've probably seen all over the place, and maybe you've heard about me up to this point, I'm direct and I'm no bullshit in my approach. So whatever you ask me, you're going to get an honest, direct response. So just bear that in mind. So go for it. What is it you're sort of maybe struggling with or curious to know about?
Yeah, so I suppose from my perspective, like what I just mentioned around, we've had a model that's kind of worked for the last year or so in terms of building B2C. When you choose to when you choose to expand a B2C model, it takes a lot of marketing. It takes to grow that and to acquire customers expensive. And especially, on a subscription basis to acquire customers can be expensive, especially as you grow, which is why, I feel like our value proposition works really well on a B2B basis. I'd be just keen to hear your thoughts on both of those commercial models and what your thoughts are there. And sorry, just to add before you go, like even if we were to move into more of the kind of B2B space and offer that, the Garmst personal styling model, rental model within brands' websites, we would still be aiming to grow our kind of B2C and brand at the same time. We're very, it's a very young market, and I feel like it's still, whichever way you choose, or whether you kind of choose to run some kind of like parallel type proposition, I still believe that the Garmst will still need to be a heavily marketed company to kind of grow rental as a proposition in the menswear space. But yeah, sorry that.
Potentially. Yeah, no, okay, good questions. I suppose to answer that, I need to ask a follow-up first, which is, the B2B proposition, what exactly does that look like in terms of, what exactly you providing for them? Do they have a specific platform or area of the platform that they're using? Are they being provided materials to promote in their own store or stores? Like, what exactly does that look like?
Yeah, no, really good question. So from like when we think about what the Garmst proposition is, the Garmst proposition is customers being able to come in. We record what customers' information is. That gets fed into a styling algorithm based on their input. So exactly the same as what we do now in a B2C perspective, but a customer will go in and say, right.
But just let's be like super black and white about this. So you're saying that they would do that in, say, if you were making a deal with a local shop, right? Let's say Next, for example, then you would give them the tools to allow customers of theirs to rent clothes in their shop through Garmst. But how? How do they do that? Are you giving them an app? Are you giving them a B2B version of software? Like, how exactly are they doing that?
Yeah, so it will be an integration into their website. So
so online, not in store necessarily.
Yeah, so initially it would be online. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. All right. Okay, cool. I think I understand. And again, there'd be just that revenue split there.
Yeah, I mean, at that point,
based on subscription, or would there be
so based on
additional fees?
I think in terms of menswear, I think the subscription works really nicely, and I think in terms of a value proposition to a brand, I think it drives real engagement from a customer as well. So actually, rather than a kind of one-off, I'm going to buy a Next shirt. It's what, actually, I know what I like. I know I like Next, but I'm not really sure kind of what I want. So it's that introduction, and actually when it's a subscription model, customers at the end of a subscription can say, you know what, I'm really happy with what I received. I actually want to buy this now. And as I said before, they would have paid.
You don't need to pitch it to me. I get it. It's fine. I'm just trying to understand how it works. Like, I'm bought in. I like the product. It's a good idea. You don't need to sell it to me. I'm just trying to understand the fundamentals of it. So then. There's the revenue split for the subscription. So they're going to get 50% of that.
So that would,
But then, are there any additional fees that they have to pay in order to sell?
No. Also, like in terms of them, it would be their customers, and their customers. We wouldn't be acquiring those customers. So in terms of that revenue split, like it would be way less than 50%. The only reason it's that at the moment is because we're piloting, we're seeing if it works. Like,
sure. So it would be far more in their favor, is what you're saying. So would they be? So you were mentioning about they would be their customers. So they wouldn't be what on your database? They wouldn't essentially become Garmst customers. What would you mean by that?
Yeah. So a Next customer, would go onto the Next site and fill in the form. We would hold the data, but it would be a Next customer. We would work with the brand to engage their customer with Next, not work with the brand to engage their customer in our other portfolio of brands.
I see. Okay. And how does that help Garmst?
How does that help Garmst? Well, we're just providing the service to the business to be able to help the business drive more revenue, lower the bar to entry, provide their customers more variety, provide their customers the personal styling service. How does that help Garmst? Because the more and more their customers are renting clothes, the more and more of a commission revenue split, whatever you want to call it, we will get.
But they're not theoretically going to be true Garmst users, though.
So they're still the product is powered by Garmst. So the customer still knows that what they're being provided is a Garmst product. They can still go onto the website and say, you know, I'm using the next introduction box, and I'm really, really loving it. Also, you know, in the kind of Garmst on the Garmst website, almost like a kind of marketplace of all the offerings that we have with our brands, is a surplus introduction box. Oh, you know, I think that looks really, really cool. I might be interested to try that brand. At which point they would, you know, it would be, you know, an affiliate style link through our website to the surplus website where they can then rent the surplus introduction box. And in terms of kind of where we would have to work very closely with our brands to figure out basically what they kind of want in terms of like data sharing. I think, you know, I'm sure we could talk for hours about where that kind of data sits. And
sure. Okay. Sorry, I will answer the question. I just I need to clarify.
Yeah, of course.
Because, you know, all this is about, you know, it'd be easy for me to just put out a templated answer, but then it's not tailored to
yeah.
And that's why I tend to take an hour with these sessions, because I think, you know, it needs the context so I can give an answer that's tailored to you and the situation and everything like that. So okay. So then So this B2B proposition, this isn't something you've already made a start on. This is a very different B2B proposition. You know, the other ones are partners. So this is in a concept phase, right?
Exactly.
So have you spoken with any businesses at least to have these initial conversations to kind of get a sense of the temperature?
Yeah. So I think
what's the response been so far on it?
Very, very positive.
Okay.
So in terms of at the moment, in terms of like our partnerships, working really nicely, but in terms. It's working nicely on a reasonably small scale and not driving a huge amount of like direct revenue for, I suppose, either the brand or us. So actually what the next, and you know, we've been working with brands to actually just prove a concept, prove that, as I said, like kind of men want to consume or are open to consuming in this way. Like next stage, now, as I mentioned, in terms of the B2B, we've spoken to brands and they're, you know, very interested in a much more lucrative kind of revenue generating proposition for them. And you mentioned in terms of fees up front, like we wouldn't charge any fees up front. We would it would be, you know, a very quick integration into their website. It would be, you know, we would have an off-the-shelf product, a Garmst product, which goes in any, you know, we would have other kind of tiers of product if they wanted to sort of be a bit more kind of enterprisey. But what we're really targeting is the kind of slightly longer tail of brands, boutique brands, ones that aren't interested in building tech like this themselves, really.
Right. So are you talking like high street brands, like the big names? Is that what you're thinking, or maybe more?
Not right now. No, I think as I mentioned, like the kind of longer tail, you know, smaller menswear, more independent. I mean, we've just
more
kind
independent sort of stuff. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Okay. Because if those are primarily what your partners are now, right? From what you were saying, there's some more independent, local kind of boutique shops. Okay, that makes sense. Okay. Yeah. So okay, I think I can answer that initial question. I think so. A couple of things you mentioned about the sort of the need for the, you know, B2C acquisition to require a considerable amount of investment from a marketing perspective, and I strongly disagree with that. And in fact, the reason, and this isn't, you know, for your particular situation, this is in general. I think this is a misconception that in order to acquire a lot of B2C customers, you need to, the only route to that is to throw a lot of money at marketing, you know, paid ads and things like that. It's not that at all. You've already done it. You know, you've acquired 100 users. What you do is you just need to examine the process in which you used for that and scale that up. And introduce some other elements of it too, which we'll get to in a second. But I think that's a really, really important thing to say, because it's very easy, I think, when looking at a B2C or any business for that matter, to think, okay, then in order for us to get to the next stage, we need to invest in marketing. And that is fundamentally incorrect. What needs to be invested in is sales. Right. And what you did up to this point is sales activity. Yep. It's going to people, it's recruiting them into the product, it's building a community around the concept and so on. And so sales activity is far more important at this stage than marketing. Marketing is like the equivalent, I see it as going to the casino. You go to the casino with money that you know you can afford to lose. You never go with money that you can't afford to lose. Marketing is similar in that sense. It's when you have that additional revenue that you know you can start to experiment, because marketing, especially online, takes time to refine. You're looking at anywhere between 3 to 6 to 8 months before you might start seeing a return, because you need to continuously refine your copy, your creative. You might be looking for the right agency to work with or the right person to hire. All of that stuff takes time and refinement. So you need to know you've got 6 to 8 months worth of money to basically piss away and not expect to get back. And so that's a gamble, essentially. And that once it's fixed and it works, then it can be incredibly lucrative. But it's not something to do in an early stage startup. I don't think it's not sensible. Even seed stage, Series A, it's still massively risky, because you're basically saying to your investors, oh yeah, that like $1 you gave us, a quarter of it we're just going to piss away, and we have no guarantee that it's going to result in anything, right? That's a big deal. So I think you're better off putting that money and the operational efforts into things that are a lot more tangible in relation to to sales efforts. And there's a couple of other things too that could toe the line, let's say, between marketing efforts and sales. What about, do you have a referral scheme in place for your users?
Yeah, we do. Yeah. So referrals kind of early on, as I mentioned, like we plug a bit of money into kind of referrals, because we find that actually it's if you can get your customers to tell their friends about Garmst, and like we're very fortunate that if someone goes from wearing reasonably similar outfits all the time to suddenly having a very big variety, usually people ask, and usually people compliment as well. So the referrals early on worked really well for us.
So how does that work currently? Is there something from a tech perspective built into the platform that allows this to be quite an easy thing?
Honestly, we just do it manually. We message our customers and say, we have a £10 referral scheme. You get £10. Your referee gets £10. And
how often are you doing that?
How often are we messaging?
Yeah.
Probably like once a month, I'd say, in terms of that kind of messaging. I would say like our early on, I wouldn't say our strong point has been particularly that consistent messaging. And I think that's something we need to get better at. And it's something that we are working really, really hard to get better at, because I think for us, we're not aiming to build a community. I think that's the wrong word. I don't think not that many men are interested in being in a kind of fashion community. I think it's about making men feel comfortable with the service they're being provided, and comfortable that everything that they get sent is aligned with, and make them feel comfortable. So it's making sure that our messaging is in line with that, and it's not, be part of this community, like, tell all your friends.
No. When I use the term community in this context, what I mean is that everyone is essentially an advocate of the product, to the point where they're very proud to talk about it and share that they use it, right? Similar to like the old 90s ads where you see like two people sat in a kitchen and the woman sort of like turns around and goes, oh wow, your kitchen's really clean, and they go, oh yeah, well that's because I use Sif. Those conversations don't happen in real life, but actually something similar to them kind of do. So if you create this sense of like you mentioned, good messaging and people relating to the brand in a way, then people do recommend stuff. People recommend stuff all the time, So it's like that's what I mean by community driven. It's a community led go to market approach, essentially, in the sense that it's the customers that are recruiting new customers and capitalizing on word of mouth. So I think that's a great example right there of like, if you were to go down sort of tomorrow and go, okay, well, let's sit down and create some copy and creative and schedule some posts and put some money behind posts like that, versus just taking the time to build out a really nice, clear, semi-regular or regular structure for messaging to encourage referrals, which one's going to yield you better results? Like, it's pretty clear. So I think that is a very clear thing. And then on top of that, well, it probably makes clear the urgency to create something from a tech perspective too, to make that even easier. And there are a ton of third-party tools you could look at for that. That make a referral or affiliate type thing very, very easy, that just plug into whatever existing platform you're using, in theory. I would look into that too, because that can save an enormous amount of time from a development perspective and money to do that. Oh, and I forgot to say at the beginning of this call as well, by the way, I will be sending the notes. This has all been taken down. I'll send it to you at the end, so it saves you having to write anything down if you need. It will summarize it and everything like that. It's pretty cool. I need to get sponsored by these guys. I constantly recommend this AI. So yeah, I think that's I would say that's up there. That's important because those 100 people, even if 10 were to recommend, every month or every week, like that's substantial growth on top of your growth already. And I think that that's a really important part of the process. And then comes the second bit. Oh, by the way, it's a web app, right? We're not talking native app, right?
Yeah, no, web app.
Okay, right. Do you have any plans in your roadmap for native app, or is this contingent on investment?
Yeah, so in terms of it's contingent on investment. Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
our plan is to is to make that experience of sign up as smooth and getting the maximum number of data points in the shortest period possible. Some people would argue within an app would be a smart way to do it. I think in terms of small scale right now, like I think obviously to get someone to download the app and then sign up, that's 2 steps. Whereas right now, someone has to do is go onto the website and do that. Like our next step would be to
not everything needs to be an app. To be completely honest, like not everything needs to be an app. People are, I don't know about you, but I've got too many apps on my phone. I don't need another one in my life. I need a very compelling reason to be given to download an app. There's an app that there's a platform or a web app or whatever you want to call it that I have used for the past 4 or 5 years for my son's school, which is simply to pay for certain things, right? And they tell me constantly there's an app. I'm not downloading it. I don't need it. I don't need to. I go on there a couple of times a month. I know the web address. It's in my bookmarks. I'm just going to do that. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. So like there needs to be, that's not even a compelling enough reason for me to just, and this is someone who loves apps and downloads loads of founders apps to test them out. You know what I mean? So like, I need a compelling reason. People need a compelling reason, but so yeah, but you never know, but it also depends on scale. So, once you get to a certain scale, it may be the needed thing. It's a different topic, I guess. Excuse me. Okay. So then the B2B thing, So I don't know how much you know about the sorts of companies I've helped with before, but I kind of cut my teeth in the startup world on scaling marketplaces. And what you're essentially talking about in some respects is kind of a marketplace, what you've set up. You've set up these B2B partnerships that provide product and then it's being rented out to the next party. So it's B2B, B2C essentially. So this rings true there. And part of the strategies that seemed to work when we implemented them at some of these marketplaces I was a part of was when we had this sudden realization that essentially the efforts that we should be putting into recruiting B2C, right, through marketing was like hitting our head against a brick wall. There's only so much you can do to find the exact people you need. There's only a certain amount of data out there that you can gather from, and especially the more niche you get with a product, the more difficult it gets. Like I can't even begin to sit down and think like what I would need to put in my AdSense, like and stuff to find your ideal customer profile. Like, you know what I mean? Like that sounds really difficult, and as just one example, and this is often the case because most people are trying to go through the new niche thing. So, and this was no different for some of the businesses I was part of. So we took a slightly different approach. So I'll throw this out there. This is what I do. I throw ideas out there and see what sticks. But I feel like there is maybe a slight flaw with this B2B proposition that you're thinking of, in that it feels like a very separate product, which to your own admission, it kind of is, to your main offering. Just Eat don't give the restaurants their own version of Just Eat. It's a marketplace. It's a platform, and so to say that, well, your customers aren't going to see any of the other vendors on there feels like it doesn't help you and your business in the grander vision. It helps them more than it helps you. I personally wouldn't go down that route. I think that if they want to have their customers onboarded onto that service, it's still a service that they're going to get, and it's still a sale that they can make and revenue they can make for someone that ordinarily would have walked out and not purchased anything, either in person or online. And I'll come back to the in-person thing in a moment because I think this is actually very important. So I think that's an opportunity for them essentially to allow for a try before you buy, which is not something that, like you said, they would have the technology, the time, or the money necessary to set up. So that's enough in itself. Okay, yeah, they can look at other services, but guess what? They can always look at other services. They can always look at other shops. That's nothing new. Like if they're on the web looking for clothes, they've probably seen 20 before they even got there. If someone's walking on the high street, they can see every single shop. Like competition is not a good enough reason to avoid using a platform like a marketplace, and to be on it. If anything, you need to be on it because you're already on a marketplace. It's stupid, right? That's a non-objection. And honestly, I think that you would be almost quarantining off a section of your business there from the other side, which means you can't exploit them to grow one another. So I'd be very careful of that. And then going back to what I was just touching on with the in-person thing, I think this is where the learnings we had from other marketplaces come in, because they were B2B, B2C, like I said, high street businesses, local businesses, brick and mortar businesses. And one of the keys that we found with this is actually tapping up existing customers or existing footfall to recruit from a B2C perspective. So look at it like this. If you were to work with a local shop, right, let's say a nice boutique menswear shop, of which there are many, or at least there used to be, then online might not be good enough. Because of actually online, that these places probably don't get an enormous amount of traffic online because they are generally relying on footfall. They're not well known. Like that's the point. They're boutique. So people aren't Google searching them all the time. Versus I want to buy a shirt. Let's see what they've got on next. It's a bit different. So just restricting yourself to having an online presence, I don't think is enough. But if you had a setup within the shop, whether this is a little I don't know, stand with a QR code, some flyers, whatever, and said if you would like to try before you buy, in our shop, then this is it. And it's branded by Garmst, co-branded, but you see the point. And this is a sort of package that every business that partners with you can get. They can get this little stand, they can get this nice looking thing, and they get revenue from that. I think that is a really good way, because what you're doing is you're adding that service then, so they're getting additional value for their customers. It's allowing them to try stuff before they buy, which is, like you said, a trial period for their clothing, which means that they're more likely to buy and walk out with something. You can even tell them that if you get someone walk in and they're a bit unsure and they're about to leave, go, hey, before you go, look, I know you haven't bought anything today, but if you'd like, you could actually try something. And so those customers that they see just walk in and walk out all day, every day, they've suddenly got a reason to maybe make some money out of them and not lose them. That's a big deal, like for these people, right? Because that happens all too much. So there's that. But then what it's doing is it's recruiting people to the platform. It's recruiting users every day. So these, it's everyone's winning. Do you see what I mean? I honestly think that's probably the best way to go about that. And look what you've just achieved in those two things. Really pushing from incentivizing referrals, by getting discounts, this, that, and the other. You can, formulate that, build it into the platform to make it, foolproof, and continuously remind people of the benefits of that, so that there's just a viral effect going on there. And then working with brands to essentially recruit their own footfall, web traffic, everything like that. Those are your two main sources of new users. And if you nurture those two things, the growth could be pretty damn exponential. With very minimal spend.
Yeah, I like it. I think it's really cool. I think the kind of slightly different view on, being a marketplace as opposed to being, the kind of building the tech into the brand's website. I think it's nice. I think that's kind of a very tidy way of looking at things.
That would just, look, and this is, like I said at the beginning of this is, I'm going to be sharing my stuff. I could be wrong, could be right. I don't know. It could be completely against the sort of the ethos you had for your company. But I do think that we kind of get a tendency to over-engineer some of our ideas sometimes. And your initial idea is the thing that makes the most sense. And it's like, when you start looking at other ways to exploit the idea, I think it's easy to go off on tangents and to kind of get lost. And start coming up with things like you mentioned there, of like, okay, well, we can build something bespoke. It's like, why? Like, that's your idea, stick to it. At least in my opinion, unless there's some reason for it that I haven't seen or we haven't discussed. But I honestly think the simpler the better in that sense. That's what I look at, and I think that, like I said, it's a very cost-effective way of being able to create virality on your product, and then later other things can come. But honestly, I think those two main things can be put into place, and those are the things that you can just put, continuously push resources into to scale. And it's a very, straightforward business proposition to make, because if you can then imagine quite easily how you can just continuously bolster the product to support the virality through referrals. That's a pretty straightforward thing to do. It's essentially part of the customer journey we talked about. That is already a very important thing. That would be considered probably one of the main metrics that you measure for lock-in, is how soon they recommend, right? How soon they share their code or something. That's probably a very important, North Star metric for that lock-in effect that you're talking about, which I would track quite closely. But then in terms of being able to scale the B2B stuff, I mean, that's human resources. That's the case of allocating salespeople on a territory to find these particular businesses and to go and sell. No marketing needed, no gambling needed, just the gamble on people, right? And talent, which is always a gamble. But that's still something that you could do right now. So does that answer the questions?
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah, I think the in-store propositions are really interesting one, because up to now, really, I've thought about the exact thing that you're talking about in the in-store. Like, that's the exact thing that's happening in my head. Is like someone's going to a website, they're kind of having a little look around, they're going, you know what, like this brand is cool, but I'm not really sure about it. I don't really want to take the risk on it. It's a bit expensive. Is the quality, it's all these kind of questions going through. And it's like,
but you can still do the same thing on their website as well. But I'm just saying, don't make it like a separate thing just for them. Like it's a partnership. In the same way that if I went to my local chip shop's website, not that they would have one, I don't think, but that it would still say I could order through Just Eat. Like that's the only way I can order from them. Like, really online is through Just Eat, because if they don't have an online portal, but if it was a shop, then I could buy it. But in this case, there would be the buy option and a try option, right? Which would be through Garmst. So the Garmst option. So I think that integration is still an important thing, but just not to make it like white labeled in some way. But more to as a redirect to their profile on your platform. As opposed to their own version of the platform. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. I think the marketplace kind of idea is something that we're very keen on before as well.
And investors love a good marketplace, man. They love a good marketplace. So I mean, look, we've got 10 minutes and I want to make sure this is most valuable to you as possible. So did you have some other questions maybe about that or some other things before we jumped on?
I mean, I suppose our questions now, we're raising money really. And we're raising money for mainly for two reasons. One of which is to take the product that we've built and to continue development into that product, to it's research and development, continually prove the model that we have set out. That we have an MVP now. What's next? How can we improve that? How can we work more closely with brands? How can we develop our website to be able to, whether it's a marketplace like we just mentioned, or whether it's a white label solution or whatever. Like, part of it's that. Then the other side of the coin is marketing. Like we are growing, and we've been growing kind of organically. And as I said, building the technology or utilizing the technology that someone already has to be able to implement referrals within our kind of ecosystem and get that kind of clear messaging. So I suppose the question is more directly around kind of fundraising for someone that's for a very young team. Like we have kind of prioritized a lot of events. What would be your number one kind of tip around that?
My number one tip around that is really make sure investment is what you need, and not what you've been told you need. And so this might be slightly dodging the question. I will maybe more directly answer the question in a minute. I did just check. I don't have a hard stop. We can go slightly over. But I think this is a really important question. This is not, again, to sort of try and poo-poo your decision here, but time and time again, I do these sessions with people and they're talking about investment. It's just, it seems to be because everywhere that we go in this startup ecosystem, that's what people do. And we feel like, okay, well, this is what I should be doing. I honestly believe the vast majority, I would say probably about 80 to 90% of the people I speak to shouldn't be looking at investment because their business is strong enough. They've got a great product. They've got a great proposition. They've got good value. They've got a good talent in the team to make it work. go and make it work. And in some ways I think there's a strong case to be made here with your business, especially with the stuff that we just talked about, that actually with the right time and resource allocation here, you could just continue to grow what you've got, probably quite exponentially, if you were to just go out and get some of these things implemented. Like, I think that it could work, pretty quickly. And it does then beg the question, well, if we can make it grow organically for now, is this really the right time to be looking at investment? And I know, of course, the counter to that is, okay, but we could grow quicker with investment. Could you? Because actually what investment means, as you'll probably found out, when did you start this process for looking to raise? How far into that are you?
I mean, we've kind of been building the kind of proposition since like October time, but
okay.
like January, we've
relatively fresh.
A lot more. We've been very, very focused since kind of the beginning of end of December, beginning of Jan.
Okay, so what you've probably already noticed is how time consuming it is, right?
Definitely. Yeah.
Right. I mean, I know people that have been working on their deck for 2 fucking years. Like, it's nuts. Like, the deck's never finished. It's never perfect. Everyone's got an opinion on it. Every investor you speak with has got an opinion on it. Every advisor like me is an idiot and has an opinion on it. Like, that in itself is an absolute time sink. Like, to take you away from your business. Seeking investment is an absolutely full-time job for the CEO, and the CEO very naturally brings in other people around him in the team as well and distracts them from their job as a result, because he needs additional support. It is a very disruptive thing to be looking at investment, especially if the business is not ready for it, because of all that's doing is it's stunting the growth of the business, because of the fact that all that time and resources is being spent on that compared to the actual business itself. So I think it has to be a really, really calculated thing, and I don't think, unfortunately, most people calculate this properly. I think they just see as, okay, we're doing well, we definitely need the money. And it's like, that's not good enough. Like, if you're doing well, you don't need the money. And if we've already dispelled this idea that that marketing isn't the way to go early stage, that's the way to go later stage, then really that's the main reason people want the money. Right? Let's be honest. It's marketing and people. That's what it is. You want to build the team, build the product, and spend money on marketing, because it's the magic wand that's going to make your business successful. It's just not true. It's just not the case. So I first of all, I would really seriously think about that and talk about your team with that, about whether or not that is the right thing to do. And then there's the actual, the real question, I guess, that you asked me, which is, about going about it. By the sounds of it, you're doing the right things. It's about who you know, not what you know. It is an exercise in networking, which is why it takes up so much time, because most of your time is dedicated to going to events, meeting people, having coffees with people, just building relationships. And that's really what it is. So you're doing the right thing there. Just keep doing more of that. And and just making sure that the keep refining the pitch deck. Things that we talked about today. This is the kind of stuff they want to see. So actually, the things that we talked about that don't rely on marketing in order to grow a business, that's what they want to see. They want to see. I know from investing myself and knowing other investors, you want to see a founder that has the ability to sell beyond anything else, not just allocate funds. So for a founder to just say, well, if we got this much money, we would invest this much in here, we would hire a sales team, we would build the products, and we invest this much in marketing. That's not good enough. You want to hear them go like, well, this is how we've been scrappy and got our first users. This is how we will continue to be scrappy and get my first users. I will still pick up the phone and do sales calls. And you know what I mean? Like, that's what you want to hear. You want to hear, well, what is the sales plan, not the marketing plan? And that's very rarely there, because the reason for investment in the first place is reliant on the money for marketing. So actually, it's just not good enough. So I think that's something that needs to be refined. What is the actual commercial strategy? It needs to be bulletproof, and it needs to inspire confidence. Essentially, the way I always describe this, and people are sick of me explaining it like this, but I always explain it like this, is you need to be in a position where you can go to a person with money and say, listen, mate, our business has gone from here to here in a very short period of time. We are going to continue going up there over the next 5 to 8 years. We're going to make it. We're going to be huge. Everything is telling us that we are. It's going to work, right? But if you give us your money, we can do it 10 times as well in half the time. We're going to make it with or without your money. We know that we will. But if you give us your money, we'll make it quicker. So we are willing to give you some of our company in order to do that. So you make some money out of it because we want to get there quicker. What do you think? That's basically what you want to say. Not, we're not sure. We kind of need your money to make it. If we don't get your money, we're probably going to close. Like, no one's going to invest in that. You know what I mean? And this is, I think, the big mistake a lot of people make. And again, it still begs the question, okay, well, do you really need to give away a bit of your company in order to achieve that? If you're comfortable being a bit more patient and just doing it over that longer time frame, then do that. And who knows, a couple of years into it, you might go, okay, actually, we need investment for a different reason. Now it's not just to accelerate the business. Now it's to actually be able to afford to explore some very significant partnerships, or to bring in actually the connections that those VCs have to create more commercial opportunities. Suddenly it becomes more strategic rather than monetary, and that's different. So yeah, does any of that waffle make sense?
yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's a really good point on the kind of the strategic move as well for investors. I think like one of the main reasons we're a very young team. One of the main reasons we are looking to get advisors on board and to work with to get more advisors on board and angels is for that experience, for that network. As you said, like actually a lot of what we're going to be doing is selling into brands, right? We're selling our value proposition to brands to say, this is what we're all about. And actually, a warm intro with an angel that has a network of people that they know within those brands is really, really helpful in the same way that.
Sure, but I'm sorry to interrupt, but this is really important. My point with that is, once you are at a point of some level of success, that is when you ideally want to be doing that. At this stage, seed, pre-seed business, startups, you don't have the leverage to be able to demand that in some ways. Do you know what I mean? Like, the angels and stuff like that you would, you're pitching to them at this stage is the point. You're trying to convince them. And if that's what you and what you end up with is working with a lot of, or speaking with a lot of potential investors who don't really have that network or the desire to actually offer that level of advice. The amount of angels and early stage VCs that say they're going to introduce you to their little black book or provide you with some guidance and oversight and advice that don't is astronomical. It just doesn't really happen. They find something shiny that's new that really interests them, and they get really excited. They invest the money, and then they'll maybe have one conversation. They'll forget about it. That's the truth, right? That's the hard reality of it. But if you are at a point where you're already making X amount, of revenue per month, and you're doing well, and you're the talk of the town, and you're refusing to take the investment until one day you go, do you know what? We could do with it, because we've got people knocking on our fucking door saying they want to be our advisors, saying that they want to invest in the business. Like, that's the position you want to be in, where they're selling to you, and that's further down the road. And that's because you're concentrating on the fundamentals of just building the business as opposed to relying on them to build it for you. Because otherwise you end up with charlatans, at the beginning, maybe giving you some bad advice or giving you none at all because they said they were going to. That's the harsh reality of the startup ecosystem from an investor perspective. Not all investors are like that. Let's be clear. I'm not like that. There are plenty of others that I know that aren't like that. But the point is, finding them and convincing them to invest is difficult. So why put yourself in that position? It's an imbalance of power. The one thing that I tell founders all the time to remember is it's an absolute privilege for an investor to be able to invest money into a business. It's a privilege for them. Like, let's not forget that, because they're getting a piece of your business. That's it. They're buying a piece of your business. Like, that's a privilege. Don't be frivolous with that gift that you're giving people, a piece of something that they've had no part in building. You know what I mean? That's a big deal. So, it's important to try and shift out of that mindset of thinking like, you're privileged by being in their presence. Like, no, fuck that. Like, they're going to write off most of it anyway. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean much to them. Like, so if you want them to be involved, make them want to be involved. And make them come to you is kind of my point. And that's why holding off on this idea of investment, I think sometimes for a great business is a good idea. It's leverage.
No, I mean, that is a very strong position to be in, as you said. I think that imbalance of power, thinking about that is important, and finding the right investors. Like, we've spoken to a lot potentials, and from early stage conversations with some of them, like we know we would not want to work with them because
Right.
it is that imbalance of power, and like we are being very we want to be very selective. Like one of the big reasons we wanted to do this was basically for the reason that you have just spent the last kind of 5 minutes talking about, is that actually people that want to help us, people that see that we are going to be successful, and that with their aid and with their experience, actually that will help us along the way on our kind of journey. So
and it's worth pointing out that there are still ways of accomplishing that without necessarily awaiting a couple of years to build a business to like 10 million ARR, which is through personal branding and through creating buzz around it, which I'm sure you're doing, and so that does kind of create that sense of buzz around an early stage startup pre those sort of numbers. Absolutely. And so in that sense, I think you're doing the right approach. Being quite selective and being very mindful of the things we're talking about. That's really good to hear. So, if that's the route you want to go down, go for it. But again, just be mindful of the balance. All of this takes time. And, building your own brand as an investable individual, an investable business, and getting everything, your ducks in a row in order to do that, it takes an enormous amount of time. And you've got to stop and ask your question, could this time be better spent just building the business? Is this a right balance? And only you will know the answer to that. I don't. I'm not suggesting there's one right or wrong answer, because I couldn't, decide on that. Only you and your team could. But do be mindful of that, because every activity you're doing on that, while it's helping on one sense, it is pulling away from another. That's the duality of being a founder, and the CEO. It's the difficult thing.
No, it's something I think about regularly, and it is frustrating when you're spending time time and effort convincing investors or pitching or whatever, even though I think it's great experience, because
100%.
Being the champion of your product, being the best salesperson of your product is valuable when you come to working with brands.
100%. Once you've decided to do the raising, there's no part of that that's not valuable. Like you say, the failures, like once you've made that decision, as long as you know it's the right decision for you in the business, every single part of that, no matter how difficult it is, as you say, is incredibly valuable. Absolutely. You're refining a shit ton of skills along the way. So I agree. So and anything else you wanted to ask about? Because we do have a couple of minutes, or I've got a couple of minutes spare, but it's entirely up to you. I'm enjoying our conversation.
I do. I think it's brilliant. I think it's and this is one of the reasons I enjoy chatting to like angels and people with experience in the kind of startup world. Like you mentioned, you have experience in the kind of marketplace area, and kind of hearing what you have to say on that was like
that was my entry point into the startup world. Since then I've done a lot, but I
don't think so. Not directly.
Cool.
How about you? Is there anything else that you?
I think that was I hope that was useful. In for what it was worth, and like I said at the top of this, the sort of I think that I would hope that it's kind of refreshing for you to just get some straight, no nonsense bullshit kind of advice, because I think there's far too much fluff in this industry, and no one's got like we just talked about, no one's got enough time for that nonsense. So hopefully it was useful, and like I said, take or leave whatever parts of it. I'll send over the transcript, like I said, the summary and everything, so you've got the notes and you can refer back to them. I'm trying to think what else. No, I think that's pretty much it. But look, if you ever want to speak to me again, let me know. And also if you fancy leaving a review on Trustpilot,
the
link, email as well for that. And you can look.
Thank you very much for your time. Like really appreciate
my pleasure.
it.
My absolute pleasure. But do keep me posted on things. It sounds really exciting. That's what I was just going to say. I think I always like to end this very briefly with like a practical next step kind of thing based on the advice I give, and whether or not you do it is entirely up to you. But I will reiterate, I kind of already did it, but I will reiterate this. I do think one of the first things you could do is look at referrals. 100% one of the first things you could do, and that will very quickly start boosting those numbers. I think if you especially put something in that's automated, look at some tools that there are tools out there that cost next to nothing. I'd definitely do that. And then the second thing is, what kind of package can we offer for businesses in this B2B offering that sort of starts generating a marketplace? Start local as well. You're London based, aren't you?
Yeah.
Start local, because then you can go to these people personally, and I think that's a really important part. Just like, you know, with the early customers that you had on the app, the early customers that you have from a B2B perspective, you want to be able to nurture those relationships, you know, very closely. Start local, work your way out. That's a good way to do it, and that's a good thing that you and the team could probably be working on like immediately, you know. And so keep me posted on how things go if you decide to do that, or regardless of if you do, because I'm keen to follow along this journey. It sounds super cool and super interesting.
Nice one. Cheers. Really appreciate your time. I'll leave you a banging review, because I think it's not very often you get such, you know, expertise for, you know, pro bono. So thanks. I really appreciate it.
You are absolutely welcome. This is what I live to do. I love it. It gets me going. So, and I just get super excited seeing people like you know, doing awesome things. It's just it's just really exciting. So keep smashing it, dude, and good luck with everything, and hopefully see you at another event soon.
Oh, absolutely. Well. I'm sure you will.
Awesome. Cool.
Nice
all right,
one.
Dude. Take care. Have a lovely weekend.
All right. Bye.
Cheers. Bye.